And by the end of these things, they both pulled off their masks. He's like, I am Daredevil. I am Kingpin. And we're just going to be those things. And so as we begin season 2, we get to see what that's like, of them just feeling fully self-actualized. They're stretching. They are at one within their skin.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. BD here, and I cannot believe this is coming to an end. This is the final episode of Daredevil Director Debrief for Season 1 of Daredevil Born Again. In this interview with the directors of this finale episode, we are talking full spoilers for Episode 9, the finale, and that means we are covering everything from the jaw-dropping fate of the Commissioner to the wild, dark return of the Punisher and this army which Matt Murdock's Daredevil is saying he needs to build. So joining me now to break down the making, the intention, everything behind this episode are the directors themselves, Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. What's up, guys? Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
This is awesome. Last week was so much fun. I'm thrilled to be talking about the finale with you guys. Finally, somebody I can talk to about it. You're the first people I know who have seen it as well. So I want to start with a very light sequence that was just, family friendly and cool and chill. All the kids are going to love it. The Commissioner getting his face ripped off. How did you pull this off? How many shots do you get to even do this sequence where Kingpin rips a man's face apart?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's 2 takes. The only thing that went wrong in the first take was just literally like the blood, the way the blood splattered felt to us like a little too heightened, like became a little too expressionistic. But also, we didn't do less blood on the second take. It was literally just like, how did it erupt and spurt and all that stuff. It should be said though, like straight out the gate, that it's always it's weird to talk about obviously some character's head being crushed and laugh about it and have glee about it. I think the reason we do that is because it's such a big technical achievement by the special effects company, by Vincent D'Onofrio, by the whole team on set, everybody, and like when we say Vincent D'Onofrio, we mean him. He was like team leader on this thing for months.
Yeah, we thought we were excited about getting this thing done, but he was even more. Like we're in the middle of shooting other scenes, and he's like, okay, so what if I turn him around? What if I push him down to his knees first instead of just crushing it right in front? And we had a moment where he. I offered, but he grabbed my head and demonstrated how we do it and all of that. And that kind of told us how to build the dummy and like what phase his face would be at, would it be screaming or would it be brain dead or, because we had to scan his face in advance so they could build the thing. Yeah, it was great. But honestly, as far as I know, we just actually crushed Michael Gaston's head. I don't know how he did it.
Nobody's seen him since. Nobody's. It's crazy. I find it awesome that you guys get to work with some of the actors who really like. Tom loves Loki, Vincent loves Wilson, Charlie loves Daredevil, and I know a lot of the Marvel actors, they love their characters, but there's people who seem to have another level of affection for the characters they play.
Yeah,
and you guys seem to really get to work with the top tier of it, and that's awesome. But speaking of Vincent though, or Wilson smashing that head, there's also I think there was an interview where somebody said like. Wilson goes through a bit of like a physical evolution, and we've seen the jackets not fit. We know comics Kingpin is just a massive individual. Is there something you guys are doing that we should be keeping our eyes on? That he's now strong enough, not only too big for his suits, but strong enough to smash someone's face like that?
Yeah. It's there's as you said, like there was at the very beginning of the show, we introduce his character for the first time by showing him eating a single piece of asparagus and like half of some egg whites or something like that. And there was a lot of conversations because it's just physically hard to pull off, right? Is he actually has to build all of that. And then you actually have to hide it. And then you actually have to build costumes underneath costumes to make it feel real. And then you have to track all of that. And sometimes it just has to be different in a scene just because it's different. Sometimes it has to be scripted where you watch him pop a button or something like that. And it was a large amount of conversations getting it right, but it also feels like he built up his strength in order to crush a head. Like to do what he really always wanted to do.
And also, by the way, again, props to makeup, props to wardrobe, props to everyone on that transformation in Fisk, because Vincent in real life, not just making a joke. Vincent's in great shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like dude's strong.
He has to put on like kind of a fat suit almost to be as giant, but he is like ripped. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah, that sequence and the slow build of Kingpin. And I didn't even think about the food. Now he's eating steaks and all this other stuff. By the end of it, that's for you guys, man. The attention to detail.
Well, so what's really important, and it happens in an episode we didn't direct, what's really important is he's eating really lightly in order to become mayor. But once he becomes mayor, we actually used to have a line in episode 1 is when he's about to announce his candidacy for mayor, he says it's time. But we did a take where he says it's time to grow. And we meant that to be have a double meaning, where it's like, of course, we grow outside of our criminal enterprise, but he means it literally. He needs to get bigger, like an amoeba, absorbing and getting larger, like the blob. And so one thing that was important was when we learn about Adam in his little dungeon. That's where he goes to eat and grow and grow and grow, and that's where he goes to let his id out, and he's eating like a carb bomb instead of eating asparagus. So
yeah, good for Kingpin. It's a sign of wealth to eat so much in this economy. I'll tell you what. You guys get to bring Punisher back in this finale, which was awesome. There's the reveal in the apartment, which I thought was a really nice touch. I somehow avoided the set photos that came out that like showed us he was coming back. Or forgot about them, and I was surprised to see him in the finale. How many different ways did you guys think about first revealing that Punisher was going to be the one in the apartment ready to help Matt? And then also shooting that whole sequence lit by flashlights. Are you guys out of your mind?
No. Actually, I'll talk about the blackout really quick. That was something we were here in LA before we'd come to we were just out for some drinks and had the idea of a blackout. Called up Dario, our showrunner. We're like, can we do a blackout? And he's like, that's exactly what we need to do, a blackout. Because the idea behind the blackout is now everyone is experiencing the world the way that Matt does. You know, they can't see. They're all at a disadvantage. Now Matt's actually at a physical advantage because he can see through all of these things. And of course, that makes huge and interesting creative difficulties, which is now everything's dark and you can't see. And so we were really excited about having a flashlight and muzzle flash lit fight, where every time you see a flash or something like that, you see the pain and anguish in Punisher's eyes. You know, you see the desperation in injured Daredevil's eyes. Well, not eyes, you get it, but on his face. And it's something that isn't. It's not total chaos. You still see each beat, and you see their different philosophies. But
a few things about that team up, that fight scene with Daredevil and Punisher, that we're so happy that it all worked out and it's there, it's on screen, everyone's going to see it. First thing is that, you know, we come onto this show that has this amazing legacy. The Netflix show is a masterpiece, and you have these actors, Vincent D'Onofrio, Charlie Cox, and obviously John Barenthal, who are, I think objectively, this isn't even just being nice. They're three of the best living actors today, right? And they're playing these characters who they have played for a very long time, over a decade. And they've been with them a lot longer than we have. And they were kind and giving enough to have these long conversations with us about everything about them, their heart, their soul, and also things that informed their fighting style and why they fight the way they do. And one thing that was so interesting on the Daredevil side of things, it's like, yeah, obviously we all know philosophically that's the big difference between Punisher and Daredevil. Frank's willing to kill and Matt is not. But
you're a liability.
right. But what, and this is also props to Phil Silvera, our action director. I don't think Aaron and I realized how gangster Matt gets with the baton until that scene. Like, you know, it's weird. It's one of those things too that you don't really understand the full impact of it even until the VFX are done.
Yeah.
But it's like he's not killing, but that thing is vicious. And I think we had, you know, it's easy to have concerns about things like that. Like, is this going to be as brutal as it should? Is this going to be enough in the spirit of the brutality and the consequences of violence feeling real as the original show. And it certainly checked those boxes on Matt's side of the fight. Now on Frank's side of the fight, in the conversations we had with John about that character, he really illuminated for us what is the right way to portray that character fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And it is to lean into the grotesque consequences of what he does. And if you don't, then you're romanticizing. If you don't, you're kind of celebrating gun porn. There's so many things you're doing wrong. You need to understand that this is a guy who comes, like everyone else in the show, from a place of extreme pain. And that's why he does this violence, because he has extreme pain and he does think this is an act of justice. But in the moments when you see him committing the kill itself, it was important to us to capture, to like see the dopamine hit that Frank gets from that, this milliseconds of relief from his pain of his past in that moment, and also show how absurdly grotesque it is what he's doing. And the fact that Phil Silvera, action director, and all of us collaborating were able to get that across on screen, that the difference between those two fights, it's just we're extremely proud of that.
Yeah. One might think that if you're not paying really close attention to what the Punisher does, you might think he enjoys killing, but it's not glee, it's pain relief. You know, it's like saying you enjoy Tylenol. It's not you enjoy it, it's that it removes the pain for him.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that perspective. That shot of him putting the head on the table, and that was awesome, by the way. Really creative.
Yeah. I think we it's funny, you know, we mostly make horror sci-fi films, and there are some technical achievements of makeup effects and violence, and and I should say the violence is always a consequence of, again, pain, ego, an idea of justice, whatever it is. But the technical achievements of these things in the Punisher fight and Daredevil side of it, and the Fisk head crush and all of that, just as filmmakers, again, coming from the world of practical effects and all those things, we're just blown away at what this team achieved. It's a huge technical achievement.
And I think you also have to be blown away by John's ability to give that primal yell over and over and over. Does he have any voice after performing this role?
Yes, he does. He gives you 100%, and somehow there's still something left in the tank. I don't know what percent that is. He can go and do one of those scenes, then come and do another, like, just, I actually think they did the fight scene, and then I could be wrong, and then he came over and did the scene in his, I guess we'll call it his lair with Matt and Karen. I know he was doing something for the other half of that day. He can just give 1,000% always. Everyone does. It's
so weird because, you know, you watch the stunt rehearsals, right? We watch the stunt rehearsals. We obviously know everything John's gonna be doing, which is basically everything. And he, despite the fact that he's, like, you know, jumping over a counter, pulling a gun, landing on a guy, and gutting someone in like one single action, we always knew that if we were at this really high frame rate, super slow-mo on his face, that's really what's making it work, right? Like, even though he's doing all those things, even though there's these technicians doing amazing practical effects and all these things, it was like, as long as we were here at, you know, what was that, 90? I think that was that 96 frames, that one? It was higher than 48 though. As long as we were here at that super high frame rate, it was like, the whole thing works.
Bravo.
And there's a famous quote, I can't remember who by, famous filmmaker said, like, it's impossible to make an anti-war film because film is too inherently exciting, you know, and so implying that if you depict war at all, it's exciting and you can't make it anti-war. And you know, so, and taking that with this idea where Frank Castle's face in slow motion, it could be perceived as like, look how cool what he's doing is. But I think when you watch it, it doesn't feel cool. It just feels gross. And it's because the focus of what we were doing wasn't about the ballet. It was way more about the pain.
Oh yeah, when I watch it, I mean, I'm not rooting for, like, I understand that what Frank is doing it's not necessarily the right. I mean, it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
He's killing these guys, and you can see, like, you're wrestling with it. It's entertainment, but it's also like, oh God, he's just like you know, and it's everything you guys have said. And John's performance is what makes you go, oh wow, okay, I understand, you know, the dynamic between these two. That's good stuff, man. This episode ends basically with Matt declaring, you know, he needs an army to take down Fisk. And I actually was like 10 minutes left. And I was like, how the heck is this going to wrap up? Like, how is this going to end? And I was like, oh my God, they're going to leave me hanging for season 2. Well done. Well played. This is TV, damn it. But there was a shot. I thought for a second when I watched the screener, I was like, did they give me a fake shot? Is this going to be like the Defenders showing up in the bar when those doors open? I thought for a second you were going to have like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage when those doors opened. And it's these characters, the people who have Matt's back in throughout this season. How did you guys land on who to put there? Who's going to still be with Matt in that final sequence? Or was it a fake shot? Is it?
Oh no, it's a real shot. Yeah.
I know.
The dramatic beauty and also just the beauty of the tragedy of the season, and also the oddly emotionally satisfying, exciting thing about that conclusion is that the good guys lost. Matt Murdock lost. Fisk won. But in those final moments, I think you understand just enough that despite the fact that they are few who are not people who are known for, it's, you know, the only one in that room in a costume is Dee Dee. And that, like, there's something beautiful about them just being like, yeah, we lost. There's not a lot of hope, but we're going to have the grit to say, fuck it and keep going. Mm-hmm. And like, there's something just so satisfying about that. Right. Like, And if you had, you know, a bunch of other superheroes show up, it almost gives too much hope. That's no longer about the grit and the uncertainty and like just going forth and doing it, even though you know you might lose, even though you're probably going to lose. Like, that's a cool ending. Yeah. And that's like, that's heroic. That's like, it's so, I don't know. There's something just really like spiritually satisfying about that. Yeah. It's like, that's just him and these people, just humans. And they're going to keep going because fuck it. And
I love it
because they're going to do what's right.
Yeah, it would have been like two. Yeah, what you're saying would have just been like two. Oh yeah, they're gonna stop them if it's all of them. You know, all the people from the Netflix shows. Be like, oh, they're gonna go get them. I've had everything in its right place on my playlist for 2 months now. By the way, what a fantastic song to end the show with. Yeah, really says. What was the last time we saw Wilson in the finale? I don't.
Wilson Fisk or Wilson
Fisk.
Named Wilson who plays Bullseye. So the last time we see him, he's in his lair with Vanessa, and they're cheersing over Rabbit in a Snowstorm.
That's right. Yeah. The dynamic between them being, you know, they've come out on top, like you just said, the good guys lost. They are out on top. They have Frank Castle as a prisoner, but not for long. And you know, I expected, you know, traditionally with what we've seen from the Marvel shows, I feel like when you get that first episode, you show that power dynamic perfectly. Matt is literally on the ground level looking up, trying to take down Fisk, who's on the top looking down. And you have now made their distance further. You know, there was no climbing the mountain and overcoming it in one season. We have to get to season 2 and beyond to get that. Can you talk about that end point for these two characters whose journeys have been mirroring each other, but also at the same time becoming further apart and landing that in the finale? Yeah.
So the biggest journey that they've been making has to do with their metaphorical masks. So where Matt thought he was putting the mask away when he, you know, fell from grace and thought he killed Bullseye. But what he actually was doing was putting on a mask called Matt Murdock. The real Matt is probably always someone in between, someone that can do both, someone that can somehow integrate both things. And with Fisk, same deal. Is when he was becoming mayor, I think to this day, he thinks he's doing what's best for New York City. I think he actually is filling some other hole inside of himself involving Vanessa and his father and just things that he could never fill. But I don't think he's thinking, delicious power. That's all I really care about. I don't think that thought goes through his head in a tangible way. And so he put on a mask called Mayor Fisk. And by the end of these things, they both pulled off their masks. He's like, I am Daredevil. I am Kingpin, and we're just going to be those things. And so as we begin season 2, we get to see what that's like, of them just feeling fully self-actualized. They're stretching. They are they are at one within their skin. Do you think Matt's probably at his happiest being able to just wail on Fisk's bad guys? You know, that's probably when he doesn't have to hold back, when he doesn't have to play within a system. Now, he's happy, and that's dark. It's a darkness, it's a sickness, but that's why he's happy. And so, you know, we're not starting season 2 with everyone, you know, everything in its right place, as the title of that Radiohead song. That's supposed to be ironic, where everyone thinks that they're just where they always needed to be. The problem is because the show's so human and messy, and there is no black and there is no white, that there's never any stasis where everyone's satisfied. So Matt, of course, being able to be Daredevil all day, every day, that's not going to work, you know. And Mayor Kingpin just being the mayor, being a tyrant at all times, that's not going to work either. Because the way that we met that guy in the Netflix show is a guy who went into an art gallery and fell in love. Like that's not a power hungry tyrant. But like who he is a guy who cares about Vanessa and wants to do that. So they're never going to be satisfied, even though they're in opposite places where they started season 1 of Born Again.
I cannot wait to see what you guys did with season 2. So I'm going to end it with this. Just, you know, I guess a season 2, you kind of just gave a little bit of a tease of, I think, as much as you can possibly say about season 2. So I guess how far along are you guys on season 2? How are you feeling about it? And also, I mean, just because there's so much Thunderbolts footage out there already, I see the movie in a few weeks, but there's so much happening in New York in Thunderbolts. So I wanted to ask if there's anything you guys are having to do to, you know, keep that in mind, the collaborative MCU process, and how you feeling about where you're at on season 2 so far.
I mean, feeling really good. It was our first time returning to something, especially the scope where it was, you know, more or less all the same people, more or less, and just working with the same crew and having a shorthand with everyone.
Yeah.
And also on something that everyone cares so dearly about from the top down. Every actor loves the show. Everyone working on the show loves the show.
AC has like a Daredevil tattoo, like, you know.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not even being cynical, and this isn't meant to be cynical. It's just meant to be recognizing it. This is probably one of the most special filmmaking experiences we'll have. We'll again return to something at this scope, at this scale, with everyone caring so much, so many talented people, and so. Yeah, I mean, we're extremely happy with where it's at so far.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Thank you so much for sharing so many insights with me about Daredevil Born Again and your work on it. I absolutely can't wait for season 2, and I know everybody watching is excited for it as well. So on behalf of everybody watching and